Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. I'd like to welcome you, dear viewers, to another in our series, In the Light of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace and blessings be on each and every one of you. In this segment of our series, In the Light of Islam, we'll be looking at some questions with regards to the permission for marriage due to a fatwa which was made in India with regards to females and marriage. We'll also be looking at some questions with regards to education in university, which is funded by interest payments from banks. And also we'll be looking at some fiqh or legal issues concerning prayer, whether we have to cover our heads during the prayer, etc. Now, the first of the letters, one from Sharjah, where Mr. Khurshid writes in asking, Dear Dr. Bilal Phillips, Assalamu alaikum. Recently, there was a news item on television, one of the satellite channels, that a group of Indian Muslim ulama, or that is scholars, have issued a fatwa that now Muslim girls can marry without prior consent of their parents. Can you kindly throw some light on this fatwa? Is it permitted in Islam that a girl can marry of her choice without the consent of her parents, guardians, or even if they oppose to any proposal, that is the choice, be that of the girls? This is an issue which is I think a very controversial issue today, because there are a number of cases which have occurred in different parts of the Muslim world where girls have been forced into marriage. We know the case in Pakistan, of the Afridi case, where a girl, Pathan girl, married a boy who wasn't a Pathan, and it led to the point where the parents came into the courtroom and it was taken to the court, and the boy was shot by the father and brother of the girl. And we have a number of cases. I know it was in the front page news in England, where people were being stopped at the airport, as girls who had been from Pakistani and Indian families who were born in England were being taken back to Pakistan and India for arranged marriages against their choice. The British officials were stopping them at the airport, questioning the girls. When they found out that the girls didn't want to go, that they were being forced, that they were stopped. And it was a big controversy. Actually in England, where there are girls were running away from home to avoid being forced into marriage. And this is one extreme, which has raised the whole issue of the rights of parents and children with regards to marriage. So we have to look at this ruling within this context. What really is the Islamic position with regards to marriage? We know, according to the schools of Islamic law, that the Hanafi school does permit a woman, an unmarried young woman, to marry without the permission of her parents. This is a ruling which had been made in the past. However, there is sufficient evidence from statements of the Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, which to indicate that this is not the correct ruling. The Prophet, may God's peace and blessing be upon him, had stated very clearly, any woman who marries without a guardian, without the permission of her guardian, her marriage is invalid. فَنِكَاحُهَا بَاطِلٌ. That her marriage is invalid. On the basis of this, the other schools of Islamic law held a position that a young woman may not marry without the permission of her guardian. So we have a concept of guardianship, the wali, wherein one who seeks marriage should get permission of the guardian being her father, closest male relative. She has no father, could be her brother, could be her uncle, that is, who is of direct blood relations, not say her mother's sister's brother. This is not considered an uncle from the guardianship point of view, but her father's brothers or her mother's brothers, her grandfather, and these are the people who can act as her guardian. Now, her marriage should be with their consent. This is whether she has been previously married before or not, in both cases. In the case of a woman who has been previously married, then more leeway is given to her in terms of choosing somebody for herself to marry, because she's already had the experience of marriage. You know, she's more mature in that sense. So she has more of a right to go and seek, you know, a suitable mate for herself. And then the consent of the parents is more that, or the guardian is more that of, you could say, a rubber stamping, you know. Although the factors of being certain about that person, you know, being suitable, should still be there. But when we look at the issue here, there is guardianship. Guardianship there to provide protection for the woman, fundamentally. That a woman, in entering into marriage, she, because of the fact that in Islamic society, she would not be intermingling with the rest of the society as she does, for example, in Western civilization, where women and men are in constant contact and mixing and all these type of things. So they have, you know, experience in dealing with people. But even so, women still, you know, tend to be fooled by men. Men, you know, have tricks and games and things that they may play in order to impress a woman and get her into marriage, only to find out this individual is not really a suitable person, who was creating, you know, false images of himself in order to entrap the person. So the guardian is there to check out the background of that individual, to ensure that this person is a suitable match for their daughter or sister, etc. This is the purpose of the guardian. Not to force the girl into marriage, because really, in Islam, there can be no compulsion in marriage. There should not be. This is not a part of Islamic teachings at all. The guardian, in the case of a girl who has never been married before, of course, her not having any kind of experience at all, the parents would then play a bigger role in terms of trying to find a suitable husband for her. I mean, that would spare her from having to go around looking for herself. So they seek to find somebody suitable, you know, based on her preferences, and having found somebody, then, you know, she confirms it, because her marriage should be with her agreement, her confirmation. So she cannot be forced, but the guardian should be there for her protection. So this ruling now, which has been given in India by a group of Muslim scholars, where they have made this fatwa. This is actually an old ruling which has been around, you know, for some time. Maybe it was not in practice or in effect in that area for, you know, for a number of years or decades, whatever, and they have sort of returned to it. However, this ruling is not correct. The ruling is not in keeping with the clear evidence from the Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, which prohibits a girl to marry without the guardian. The point is, now, their fatwa is trying to deal with a situation wherein, due to the customs of Muslim peoples today having overshadowed Islamic teachings, the requirements for marriage now, guardians may require that those in their guardianship, their wards, that the women choose people who are from their own tribal grouping, you know, or their own caste, or whatever you may call it, you know. They're putting conditions which are un-Islamic, because the basis for choosing a suitable person should fundamentally be the deen, the religion. As the Prophet Muhammad said, a woman or man may be married for 4 different reasons. There are 4 different reasons why people, basic reasons why people choose partners. For their beauty, for their wealth, for their family status, and for their piety. And he said we should choose the pious one and we will be successful. He also said that if a young man comes and asks for our daughter's hand in marriage, and we are satisfied with his religiosity, that he is a good Muslim, etc., and of course, that he is capable of looking after, etc., and we refuse that individual, then there would be corruption in the land. This is the Prophet Muhammad's prediction. And this is what has happened in many parts of the Muslim world today. Because these basic principles of marriage are not being followed, and people tend to insist on marriages within tribalistic lines, etc., which then limit the choices of the girls. Girls are now being obliged to marry people who they really don't want to marry, and it's creating, so much running away, as we mentioned earlier, these type of things. Then the scholars have made this fatwa to kind of open the door for these girls to be able to be married to a suitable person of their choice. However, this is not the solution. This fatwa, though this may be the intent to deal with the problem, what they have done with this is actually created another problem. Because there is a basis already in the Sharia that if a girl doesn't want to marry those who have been proposed by her guardian, her parents, etc., and there's somebody who she wants to marry who is suitable for her, she has the right to go to the Muslim court, and they can look at the objections of the parents, and if they find that the objections of the father, for example, is invalid, it is racialistic or tribalistic or nationalistic, whatever, because this one's Pakistani, this one's Indian, they don't want, these kind of considerations, if they see that, they have the right to take away the guardianship from the father and act as the guardian for the girl. This is already there in the Sharia, in Islamic law. So what they should have done, in my view, is that rather than making this fatwa based on an earlier ruling, which is really not a correct ruling, they should have empowered the courts or encouraged the community to be aware, the young people in the community to be aware of this option which is there for them, that they may seek the help of the leaders of the Muslim community, of the Islamic court system, to override the objections of the family where there is somebody suitable for them to marry. This would be the better way to deal with this problem, because by them opening it this way, that a girl doesn't have to get any prior consent, then it's very easy for her now to marry somebody who may not be suitable for her. I mean, it becomes marriage just out of, whatever is attractive to her. She doesn't need to necessarily check out this person and get the details, etc., etc. This now is promoting more or encouraging the type of relationships, premarital relationships, which have unfortunately started to spread amongst the Muslim world, where people are getting into relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend type relationships prior to marriage, etc., which of course from the Islamic perspective is not acceptable, because of the corruption that tends to come from it. So this type of ruling would only further that and encourage it, So I would say that the correct approach with regards to marriage and guardianship is that